Hey, house community, and welcome back to House Arrest. My name is Adina, and tonight I'm going to start with another story. When I was in high school, there was an organization that my school would talk a lot about, and it was called Yachad. It was an organization for individuals with disabilities, with special needs, and what it tried to do was create social environments and social opportunities for high school students to connect with these individuals. Now, I remember being in grade 9 or grade 10 and feeling like actually quite intimidated and afraid to go to these programs. In my mind, I had questions like, how do I interact with these people who seem so different from me? And I realized I ended up going to a program or two, and I had been welcomed into this incredibly inclusive, open-minded, warm community like I had never known before. And I have these incredibly vivid memories of like lunchrooms packed with dancing people. I guess before COVID, doesn't sound so exciting now, but just people living their true selves with no hesitation to be doing what they actually wanted to be doing. There was no pretense like so many of us experience in our daily lives. Like we have to pretend to be feeling a certain way or hide what we're really feeling. But many of the participants at Yachad taught me that life is kind of less clear when you do that, and when you're just asking for what you want, and when you're going for things that are most important to you and being kind to everyone around you and sort of ushering at people to come join you at the table. It really creates this magical environment. And I'm not just saying this. Yachad has had a huge impact on my life. The individuals in the programs have really helped me with my self-confidence. And I've just learned so much from all of them, which is why I want to sort of hand over the stage to two outstanding individuals so that we can continue to learn from them. And just like I said, in those environments, everything was sort of at face value. There was nothing, no one was hiding anything. I too want this conversation to be straight up, just telling us like it is. I want to address the stigma and biases and simply talk openly about disability, which is what we're going to do. So I've invited two guests on, and we're ready to bring them on the show. So first, I would like to introduce Sahar Silverman. Hey, Sahar.
Hey.
Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me on. This is a real treat. Thanks so much.
For me too. So our viewers probably don't know this, but Sahar, I've known you for years, right? Yeah, I'm a good friend of your brother's, and I've seen you around the house like throughout all the years, and I know that you and your sister are just like full of also just this like warm spirit that just like you welcome in anyone around you. And I know we've had great conversations for sure. But just for some more, I guess, information for people who don't know you like I do, Sahar is 22 years old, currently in her 4th year of an honors BA in political science at York. When she's not debating politics, she's listening to 60s and 70s music and watching way too many art restoration videos. Sahar was born with cerebral palsy, which has affected her life in some ways, but she doesn't let it define her. Next, I would like to introduce Zachary Perlmutter. Hey, Zach, welcome. Hi. How are you?
Good, how are you? I've actually been wanting to do something like this for 4 years now.
4 years?
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that tonight's the night.
Fallen through the creek, so this is great.
What's that?
Many opportunities have fallen through the creek, so this is great.
I'm glad that this one is still standing for sure. Yeah. So Zach too, I've known for many years actually through Yachad, which is really cool. Zach always has like something very intelligent to say, and like a nice sort of insight on life. Zach's 30 years old with autism and Tourette's, and he's also in the process of writing a novel. He loves movies, particularly animation and video games, mostly Nintendo related, and he has dreams to be a published author. So who knows who's watching tonight? We're looking for a publisher out there, if any of you viewers are.
Yeah. I got a lot of work before I get published, but thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So I thought to start the night, we could just play a little word association game just to get the energy flowing. So I'm going to say a word, and you two will just say the first thing that comes to mind. So to make it easier, I'll say the word, then I'll turn to Sahar, and then Zach. Does that sound good?
Sure.
Yep, sure.
All right, let's do it. Word number 1, winter.
Cold.
Unbearable.
Yeah, same for sure. Okay, next, reading.
Long.
Verbose.
Technology.
Cool.
Interactive.
Sidewalk.
Nuisance.
Uh-oh.
Nuisance and uh-oh, that's interesting.
Uh-huh.
School.
Funish.
Frustrating.
And what about disability?
I guess mine is 3 words, but it's a part of life, I guess.
Ableism.
Part of life and ableism. Okay, I want to start there. That's super interesting. I think that there's more to unpack, so I'd love to let's start with Sahar. Like when you said a part of life, can you talk a little bit more about that? What do you mean? Do you mean a part of your life, a part of everyone's lives? How do you see that?
So I think that quite a lot of people, well, first of all, it is a big part of my life because I was born with CP. My sister also has CP. I mean, like my whole life, I, I, I've had this, but I think that tons of people don't realize that in some way, shape, or form, disability will affect their lives also, whether it be somebody's grandmother or somebody's friend or some other person, and they just don't realize, and they think that or I think that a lot of people have this notion that disability is so far out of their comfort zone that they don't realize that it's just a part of natural human life, and that there are many people that have it.
Yeah, I think you said that really well. And it sort of relates to the story that I spoke about in the beginning, right? Like I also had that hesitation. And I think it was just because of a lack of exposure or kind of like a lack of education or something like that.
Yeah.
And Zach, what about you, ableism? Interesting.
So, I mean, I'll use a modified version of something that I once heard from Jax, from Jewish Addicts and I think it's community service or something like that. I don't know exactly what it stands for, but they mentioned that to paraphrase them, a disability doesn't only affect the individual; it affects everybody around them. It affects their family. It affects how their friends. It affects their relatives, their acquaintances, and there's a lot of really unfair stigma that's just associated with it. Like Sahar said, that I remember when I initially was going into Yachad, and it's a problem that I have too. I have to challenge myself. There's a stigma that people who are disabled have disabilities are seriously incapable of being independent, like they're. And I don't mean to be offensive when I say this, but they think of people in wheelchairs or with walkers or with crutches. And there are people who have that, but there's a whole spectrum. And it doesn't mean you can't live a fulfilling life.
Certainly. Yeah. I think that's key. Yeah.
That's 100% true.
Yeah. So I think the word disability then itself is also a little bit misleading because from what I've heard just in conversations with people like Zach, it was interesting that you used the word ableism. Disability already implies something that you're lacking, something that we lack, right? Like it's a lack of ability. But that's I'm kind of not satisfied with that because I think that there are so many ways to live a fulfilling and meaningful life, and I think disability at once is like a vague term, but it's also quite an exclusive one.
Yeah.
And just considering, again, going back to my initial story of like that hesitation, like I think that part of it is because of the word itself. Have you guys had any sort of experiences or feelings of pushback against the word disability?
sorry, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, I'll go. I guess I'll
Yeah,
go
sure.
first. So I mean, the term disability is a challenging one in the disabled community. I think it also is. I mean, on one hand, there isn't a good substitute for the word because English is limiting like that. It's a very reductive and restrictive language, unfortunately. But on the other hand, because there's no real like satisfactory substitute for the word, much like with the trans community and using the term they as opposed to he and she, it's also limiting. But the point that I'm trying to make is that because there isn't a really great substitute for the word, people have no choice but to use it.
Sahar, what do you think about that?
So I actually think there's two parts to that, and one is that I think that there has to be some sort of realistic expectation. So I do think that disability is in fact a realistic word in some senses. Like, I will never be able to go climb a mountain because I am disabled. I am unable to do something like that because of my disability. So that's one aspect. But the other aspect, my mom used to say growing up too, is that you're not able to do it how other people are doing it, but you have other ways, and there's lots of people that can't do things that you can do and stuff like that. So I think it's kind of a two-toned problem, or a two-toned thing that needs to be talked about, because on the one hand you have to be realistic about what that word means, because it does mean that at some point you are disabled. I'm never gonna tap dance, even if I like tap dancing, which I do. That's just not a realistic expectation. So that is a diss in that sense.
Yeah,
I understand that.
I'm not going to be able to be a surgeon or drive a car.
Yeah,
because I
that's
have
a really
bad reflexes, and I tick a lot, so that it makes it hard for me to have good judgment. But I think also, to add to Sahar's point, there's often a romanticization of disability. It's not, if you get rid of the dis in the ability, you get ability. But I think that kind of is also a little reductive, because
that's really true.
Because people who have disabilities struggle with their disabilities all the time.
Yeah. We can't just ignore that they're there, right? We have to acknowledge them. Yeah. So I really appreciate that both of you, I guess, are able to confidently say, like, we know we can't do everything, in a way that I'm not necessarily confident to say about some things I know I can't do either. But I'm wondering, Sahar, you said that, it's two-toned, right? Like, it's more nuanced than maybe the word just as the word presents it. What are some of the great things that come with your disabilities?
Okay, so I think number one is you have to learn how to stand up for yourself. You have to learn to be your own advocate, as my mom has said to me time and time again, because there will come a time when the people that you're used to helping you when you're younger or whoever can't do that, and you have to speak up for yourself when you're an adult, when you're older, and all of this kind of stuff. And as I grew older, I've dealt with attendance not showing up, and I've had to deal with that. I've dealt with helpers in school, and just all those things. Like, I've had to interview them. As I got older, my mom wanted to give me those skill sets, obviously, so that like, that it's obvious, in the sense that she would sort of, that she would kind of want that for me, if that makes sense. And so she gave it to me because she said, you know, you need this for yourself. You have a very full life to live. So we're not
And I'm
always
sure,
going to be
like,
here. Yeah.
in those moments in the beginning, it surely couldn't have been easy to do all of that stuff. But sort of looking back now, you're 22 years old. Obviously, you have, you know, much to still experience in life. But what do you think is the value in learning something like that so sort of tangibly as you've had to?
So I think one thing is, like, things are never going to come just because you, like, they're never going to come if you don't do something about it. So, like, once you're older, like, or me, for example, like, just because I have a disability, like, if I don't make plans to have somebody come and, you know, do, like, help me with my care and stuff, then there ain't nobody gonna come. So you gotta deal, you sort of have to deal with that kind of responsibility and that kind of juggling of that, with just life, because that is a part of life. And yeah, that's just a part of growing up, basically.
Yeah, it's sort of, yeah. Zach, you want to jump in there?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I've also had to learn is that you can have the loudest voice in the room, but if other people aren't willing to listen and amplify it, it's meaningless. And people with disabilities make up the largest minority group in the world. Like they transcend gender, sex, race, nationality, even class. Everybody has it. Everybody can fall into it. It's so easy to fall into that minority group. And we have a lot of powerful voices, even when we can't speak. But if individuals who aren't, if enabled individuals aren't willing to help us and are, and God forbid, willing to hurt us, it has real ramifications. I mean, to use like 3 examples, when you have an elected official during a campaign mock a reporter with a Pulitzer, I think, reporter with cerebral palsy and still get elected, that says that we have a long way to go. When you have a ban of plastic straws that can be a problem for somebody who has paraplegic or cerebral palsy and can't drink through a metal or paper straw, that shows we have a long way to go. When parents are afraid, and this is a personal one, to vaccinate their children because they don't want them to have autism. Well, aside from the fact that autism can still lead you a full life, you still shows that we have a long way to go. And these seem like microcosmic examples, but they're actually macrocosmic because they show how society as a whole doesn't always understand that their actions can have consequences.
I really like that juxtaposition you made, that, you know, the people with disabilities are the largest minority group, yet look at all of these things over time that have been happening, you know, recently within the last year that sort of prove that not enough of us are, I guess it's a matter of awareness. Like, we're not sort of, even if we are aware, maybe it's further than awareness. It's like initiative or advocacy, right? So what have you found the larger community doing to help? Sahar, have you found support? Have you found further difficulties?
So I actually think one is that I found tons of support, whether it be through programs or people. Especially, I want to applaud the Ontario government because they have quite a long way to go, but they are, especially in Ontario, we have lots of, you know, we have Lynn, which is like the, you know, where you get, it's basically like CCAC. I guess that's the old one, and and there's other programs for people who actually want to hire their own attendants. That's what I do. I hire my own attendants, and there's coverage for wheelchairs. I mean, again, as I said, it's not perfect, but as somebody with a disability, and I feel very blessed live to live here. Just one other thing, we have Wheel-Trans, which has served me super well for more than 10 years, and I think
Wow.
that they should really be applauded as well for, yeah.
Yeah. Little show of gratitude there. Hey, Wheel-Trans.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, financially, I'm always going to be struggling. I'm currently working for a courier service that deals with special needs called Goodfoot. I'm not active on the field right now because of the pandemic, but they have been kind enough to support me with some income while I'm, I guess you can call it furloughed. I'm not sure if it's the correct term or not, but and then also you have like, for example, on a more government level, you have RDSPs, the Royal Disability Savings Pension. I think that's what it's called. And I'm actually really grateful for that, because as much as I might have issues with politicians as people and politicians as the system itself, that was a great invention, and I'm benefiting from that.
So systemically, Canada is at least it's begun to do what it can, and like you're saying, it has a long way to go, but you feel like you get governmental support. But what about on a more personal level? So thinking less of like government assistance, but just like the people that you encounter in daily life.
So,
Sure.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Sure.
Sahar, why don't you start there?
Okay. I mean, so personally, for instance, my parents, first of all, they're super supportive, and I think that's a huge thing, and I just want to thank them. First of all, they're super awesome. Second, I especially when I went to high school, tons of friends, even when I wasn't in high school, it just people who support you when you say, "Hey, Sahar," or when you ask, "Hey, can you pass me a pencil because I can't reach it," or they're just or just having them as who can lend you a hand, but not because they take pity on you, or because they're your friend, but they also just happen to help you out, and
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I always think back to that story of that. I remember hearing a story of this kid, I think in grade 2, who wet his pants, and he was embarrassed. He didn't want to say anything. And this one girl who was carrying a glass of water, I think this is an art room. She sees the wet pants, and she deliberately trips and spills the water on his pants to make it look like she was being clumsy. So instead of being the subject of ridicule, he's the subject of pity. And then she did something very compassionate for him. So sometimes it's the little things that matter. And Sahar and I are very different people. We have very different lived experiences. But for me, some of the things that have helped me is like having a life coach who I'm actually good friends with, and having a therapist who I've been seeing for several years to talk about my frustrations, and seeing a speech language pathologist to help me with my speech and how I think. And I've had a lot of interventions as well. These are all little things that people in my life were kind enough to grace me with, and I've been very blessed.
Yep, I think that's a big thing too. Just never mind family and friends, but all the other support systems, not like maybe government, but therapy or all of those things, which I think are fantastic, and they really do so much good. And yeah.
That's awesome. Zach, I see we got a comment from Logan. Proud of you, Zach, watching on YouTube.
That's my
That's
cousin's
a cool
wife.
little feature we have.
My cousin's wife.
Oh, cool.
Logan. Hi, Logan. Glad to see that you are watching. I know my family is watching. That's great.
Yeah. So I want to ask, I know this is a tough question, and I think it's important to ask it just to get a better sense of your mindset regarding your own disabilities. But do you wish that you weren't disabled or that you didn't have the disability that you do have?
You know, it's complicated. I think part of myself is defined by my autism and by my Tourette's and my other disabilities. But there have been times, like I remember once, and I'm sorry, I love her very much, but I remember once having a conversation with my aunt, and she posted used a theoretical talking about what if there was a vaccine for autism? Would you benefit from that? I think, with all due respect to her, even though I know what she was trying to get at, it was a little bit ableist too, because it implies that disabilities are something that need to be pitied and cured. And we've seen logical extensions of that in the past with governments who have tried to eradicate people with disabilities. And I don't think that, I mean, doing it again, maybe I would change some things, but I wouldn't want to change myself as a person.
Yeah, I wouldn't want you to change either.
Yeah, thank you.
Sahar, do you have anything to add?
Sure. So I think, again, that's a two-part answer. So one is, yeah, some days I do, and some days I really don't. And I've actually said for many years that I know that I wouldn't change my disability, and I still hold by that because I wouldn't be the person that I am today. That's not to say that my disability makes me who I am, but it does help me to, like, it does give me a big idea in life of, like, my characteristics and well, that's also not my point is that it's kind of like, yeah, I would, but I also wouldn't. The times when I would is probably when I'm just having a tough day, or somebody doesn't show up, or I just wish that my hip wasn't hurting or something. But my disability has really helped me in many ways. I wouldn't be the same person that I am today. And again, just to clarify, that doesn't mean my characteristics would change. I just meant that the way that my personality has grown, I think that has to do with dealing with something like that. And
Yeah, like the personal growth, all of the things your mom tried to instill in you when you were younger, advocating for yourself, what we talked about earlier, it would be a different story. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I also know that personally, that it's I remember once hearing a statement: you can't control what happens to you, you can control how you respond to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't choose to have autism and Tourette's and ADHD and other kinds of things that a whole cocktail of things that I won't go into. But it's really, I always think of it as an interesting challenge.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of things I won't be able to do because of it. I probably won't be able to drive, like I said. But I've managed. I mean, I up until the pandemic hit, I was using public transportation all the time.
Mm-hmm. So I know that we're nearly out of time, but I just want to ask one last question. What do you want people to know as an individual, as young professionals, as people with disabilities? What do you have to say to our viewers?
I guess I would say, firstly, to every single teacher who said that I wouldn't amount to anything, joke's on you. But
Yeah, look at him now. He's on TV.
I know. But I guess if there's one thing I can say is to somebody who would be young and have Tourette's or young and autism is, first of all, if you're not the stereotypical savant that autism is often portrayed as, don't be discouraged. I'm not a savant, but there are still a lot of great things you can do despite that. And people often, I mean, there are people who are malicious, but a lot of people just are curious, and you have to be willing to take that in stride and explain it to them in a way that doesn't feel demeaning.
Sahar, what would you say to anybody listening?
So I'd say that to just remember that, even if it may seem like there's vast worlds between me and you or other people, there really actually isn't when it comes down to it. Obviously, there's some people that have disabilities that you wouldn't think of or you wouldn't know, but we're all human beings, and human beings that have lives, and we all have to navigate this world, and we just need to be treated with respect, and to not and I would say one thing is, don't for me anyway, don't treat me like I am the victim of something, because I really don't feel that way. And I think that, that quite a few people have this notion that, like, because I'm disabled, that I'm somehow like so upset about it or something, which I'm not. So I think that's a huge thing also.
Yeah, I think that's a great point to end on. And although I'd love this conversation to go on and on, I think that that's it, right? Like, you are here and everyone has their story to tell, and there's nothing to pity or sort of feel sorry for. Instead, we have so much to learn from each other.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, well, thank you both, to the two of you,
Thank
for
you.
coming on tonight and chatting with me. I really had a great time, and I'd love to do this again because I still have lots of questions, and I think as a community we have a long way to go as well, which maybe we can talk about next time. But this was wonderful. I really loved it. I just appreciate both of your mindsets. I think that you're both incredibly you have this growth mindset and very positive, and I think both of you see the good in everything. And yeah, I feel really grateful to have both of you in my life, and I'm really happy to share this platform with you tonight.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll speak soon. Thank you to all of our viewers, and have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, I guess I'm gonna go now.